Hey, KU fans, welcome back to KU Sports Extra here at KUsports.com with Ben Smith. I'm Matt Tate, and we watched a barn burner of an offensive showcase tonight. Kansas wins at 59-41 over in Manhattan. The 41, I think, was expected, right? K-State's been terrible
Yeah, maybe
offensively
so.
all
Yeah.
year. They rank last in so many categories in the conference in offensive output. But I guess I didn't know that KU would struggle to score so much. You think that was kind of the opponent and the night and just the way the game settled in, Benton, or do you think that this is a sign of bigger issues for Kansas? Again, we're talking about bigger issues in an 18-point win that they came away feeling pretty good about.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that 59-41 final, it was kind of reminded me of some of the final scores from last year's team. But that team just like overwhelmed you with how good they were defensively. And I mean, that wasn't what we saw tonight. I mean, we
Right.
mostly saw a K-State team struggling, but we also did see KU continue to play the type of defense that Self is trying to get out of these guys for, the past month. They are getting better on the defensive end, and they're, some of that ugly had to do with KU's defense. Not all of it, but like you said, I mean, you go on the road and you win by 18 and the opponent scores 41 points. As a coach, and especially Bill Self, you're leaving there, pretty happy about where you're at.
Yeah, I think you said it well. I mean, even Self himself said, "Hey, look, let's not get too carried away. They missed some open looks, and I didn't hear him because we are not able to cover these things like we normally do. These Zoom conferences go on at the same time, so we can't hear both. I guess we could if we set up two computers, but that would be hard. Uh, but I guess from reading some of the quotes and things on Twitter, Bruce Weber and the K-State players basically said the same thing. We got open looks. We normally aren't a great shooting team, but we're not normally that bad, and just didn't make them. And so I think it's somewhere in between. And I think if you're Kansas, you have to spin it as we played a great defensive game, because that's what they're focusing on right now. That's what they're trying to do. That's what the whole season is about at this point. Can they be good enough defensively to make others play bad and hang in there in some games where they need to hang in there, and see if they can throw some shots in late? And Self even said this tonight, be in the game in the last 5 minutes, right? And I think the biggest thing that's about is, there's confidence that comes along with that. If you believe you're going to be in a game late, you might play the first 35 minutes with that same mentality, and then you might find yourself in that game. So I think, if nothing else, that's what KU gained from this one tonight. It was probably a game where there wasn't going to be a whole lot to be gained to begin with, right? I mean, at the very best, this was going to be their fourth win in a row. However it came, if it was by 1 or by 100, the important part was getting the win and continuing to feel good about the direction they're heading in. They did that. They did some things well. They did some things not so well. But I think at the end of the day, you're already done with this one, right? And it's on to the next three. And they're doing the one game at a time thing, which they have to do. But I know you wrote about the next three. And that's what this whole thing boils down to, right? I mean, what do they do over the next 10 days? And what do we learn about them then?
Yeah, because I mean, like, we've been talking about these three games for, the past 2 weeks,
Right.
because like, for the most part, this 4-game winning streak was kind of a foregone conclusion. I mean, beating Oklahoma State wasn't guaranteed, but that's the one team, in that lower level, the Big 12, that you felt pretty confident KU could beat. And then obviously Iowa State and K-State are two teams that have been struggling all year. So KU better beat those teams if they really are, kind of fixing some of the issues they were dealing with a lot in January. So I think that's why I wanted to write about those 3 games that are to come. Texas Tech on Saturday, at Texas Tuesday, and then the following Saturday, Baylor comes to Lawrence, allegedly.
Maybe.
I mean, probably they're playing basketball again by then. We'll see. But, I mean, those 3 games are huge, because those are 3 games where you are actually going to be tested. I mean, KU easily won against Iowa State and K-State these past 3 games, because those are bad teams.
Right.
Now, when's the last time KU beat a really quality team? That came against Oklahoma back on January 9th, I think it was.
That is correct.
It's been a long time since KU has proven that it belongs in that conversation for, a top 20 team, a top 15, top 16 team. and that's what they're trying to get to. This is what's in front of them. I mean, you have plenty of chances to kind of prove yourself and get up into that top 4 seed line, which I know they would love to do.
Let's rewind to like losing at Tennessee, losing at West Virginia. Let's take ourselves and the people watching this back to those moments. What did you expect then? I mean, when you looked ahead to these 3 games at the end of the season, which we did even then, did you think at that time, I mean, boy, they're going to be lucky to win one of those, and if that's the thought that you had then, which it was pretty close to what I was thinking at the time, have they done anything in the last couple of weeks to change your mind? I mean, do you think they've got a better forecast now in these 3 games? Not just can they win them, but will they? I mean, I think things have changed a lot in the last couple of weeks. Even beating bad teams, this team believes they're playing better basketball, and it does look that way. In a lot of ways, they are playing better basketball. It's not their fault. These are the teams they're playing. They're also beating them by double digits like you're supposed to, right? So I think that mindset, regardless of what anyone else thinks, these guys believe they're in the game right now. And so have they done anything to change your mind?
I think the defensive improvements has me more convinced that they could, beat Texas Tech and Texas. And obviously Texas handled them when Texas came to Lawrence. That was the beginning of when the season kind of turned, right? That was kind of the eye-opening moment for this season that no one was expecting. And it was, it pretty much told us about who this team was going to end up becoming in the weeks after that. And I do think KU is in a much better place now than it was in January because of the defense and because of the improvements they've made and just defending ball screens, which Self has talked a lot about recently, and how important just having those coverages and having your guys connected when you're defending a ball screen and having, help defense in the right place. I mean, there were so many times in January where, I mean, they just got torched when teams ran ball screens or help defense was nowhere to be found. And
a lot of this.
Yeah, right. A lot of the ball going in and then guys like looking at each other confused. So that has gone away. And that's why I'm more optimistic that they can actually win these next 2 games. I've seen nothing that makes me think they could beat Baylor. But also Baylor hasn't played in like 2 weeks. So who knows what Baylor looks like right now.
Yeah, Baylor's supposed to get back at it on February 23rd. At that point, if they play that game, it'll have been 3 weeks since their last game. And then at that point, man, just to get these games in, they've had 6 postponed. They're not going to get to 18, but in order to get even close to 15 or something like that, they're going to have to play 3 games next week and then 3 games the week after, and then go play the Big 12 tournament. I mean, you have to wonder about rust with Baylor, and you have to wonder about fatigue. I mean, again, these kids are young and all that, but man, to stay at that level and continually play like they've been playing all year, when you're basically playing every other day for 2 weeks, that's not easy to do. I don't care how good you are. You're bound to slip somewhere. And that's not to say it'll be in Lawrence, but I think KU loves the opportunity there, right? That's no matter what happens. Let's say KU finds a way to win that game. Nobody's going to look at that on paper and say, "Oh yeah, but." People might talk about that, but it's still going to be a quality win if they could get it. So
their best win of the season,
no doubt. We're getting way ahead of us, way ahead of ourselves. But I think that kind of proves the point. The fact that we're even like kicking that idea around shows you how far this team has come in the last couple of weeks, and good on them, man. I mean, it would have been real easy to sulk and pout and continue to kind of butt your heads up against what the coaches are asking, but these guys bought in and they have done exactly what they've been asked to do, and they're starting to feel comfortable doing it, and they're building confidence in themselves and in their coaches. What do you think of the bench tonight? That's an area they still could gain a lot from. Obviously, Bryce Thompson's return, we've written plenty about that already, but he's been a big part of this. And I thought he looked really good tonight, but he wasn't the only one. They actually had a bench tonight. I don't know that they're all the way back to the point where you can count on those guys every night. But again, if they're closer, then they're heading in the right direction, just like this team as a whole. What'd you think of that bench tonight?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because it's at this point, it's basically a 2-man bench, right? Lightfoot comes in for McCormick and Thompson comes in for whomever in the backcourt, just depending on the situation and the need. I mean, they're basically playing 7 guys right now.
Yeah, DeJuan played a lot tonight though too. So
yeah, he did. But I don't.
Yeah, he's not a guaranteed high minutes guy. I mean, against Iowa State the other day, what he played 2 minutes, 4 minutes,
Something like that.
Yeah, so he's not a guarantee, but you could tell they want to play him. I mean, you can tell that Self wants him out there because of what he can bring, if he can bring it. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so you got 8 guys at best, and it's funny that Inaruna's kind of fallen out of the rotation. And I guess that had to do with Thompson coming back, and that makes sense because Thompson's going to give you more defensively. That's always kind of been the knock on Inaruna. A lot of possessions where he's just kind of not where he needs to be defensively, and that type of thing. And Thompson's more of a playmaker, I think, too. That makes sense to me. It's even though Inaruna had been a guy who was such a part of that bench unit for most of the season, I can see why they're transitioning in this direction. And Lightfoot wasn't, perfect, and he rarely is, but I mean, he gives you such important, just like energy plays. I mean, those charges he takes, and just like I don't know, his
rebounds, whether he gets he's in there, right? I mean, that kind of I mean, he had 4 points and 3 rebounds, and Self said he was great. It's not about numbers with really any of those guys. I mean, it's for Bryce Thompson, it's about what he can give the offense in terms of ball movement, spacing, body, all that kind of stuff, energy. For DeJuan, same thing. He's got good vision. He's not out there trying to score, but he can move the ball and run the offense and get things going.
Yeah,
Lightfoot's the same kind of guy. He doesn't fill up a stat sheet, but so I mean, I think the starters averaged 29 minutes per player tonight. And I mean, you'll take that, like that's what you should get against K-State. You should get a night where your starters get to rest 55 minutes combined. I mean, it's just if they had to play them a full 35, 40 minutes, that would have been a problem in and of itself. So it all comes back to, I think tonight is a lot of what KU wants to be, right? They want to be a team that's defensively sound. They want to be a team that makes teams look bad. And they want to be opportunistic when they can play offense and have those spurts where maybe it's only a 7-0 run or a 10-2 run, but boy, that can give you that separation to where your defense can take hold of it and carry it on from then. And then same thing, you want your bench to give you something, but it doesn't have to be relied on for anything that needs to carry you or anything like that. So tonight, even though it was against a bad team and even though it wasn't the prettiest game, I think it's sort of a little microcosm of who this team is becoming and really who they want to be. I mean, it's not going to be pretty. And yeah, there's a lot of teams out there that could put this team in a tough spot with matchups and things like that. But there are also a lot of teams that this team can do that too. So I think that it just sets the stage so well. I mean, it's such a cool finish and such a fun way to kind of close out. It's a season where we still really are trying to figure out who this team is, and now we have 3 games where one way or the other, we're going to know who these guys are by February 27th. And if they do well, if they're 2-1 or they're whatever, competitive in all 3, or they win all 3 or whatever it is, if it's favorable, you're going to look at them as a team that, hey, maybe they could make a sneaky run and stay hot. If they struggle, if they don't play well, if it does end up looking like these were just bad wins over bad teams, then you're probably going to say, yeah, this team might not have it. And then you'll know who they are, and so I think that's a cool thing for Kansas, especially because how many times have we covered a Kansas team where the end of the last 3 games of the season didn't even matter, right? The league was clinched with 5 games to go, and these games were just kind of get us to postseason play. Well, this team, they need these last 3 games, and they need them to learn about themselves and continue to set that bar as much as they need them for wins and losses. I mean, they're obviously going to make the tournament, but it's about what can they do when they get there. Any final thoughts on tonight? If you want to talk about that offensive performance anymore, do you want to talk about Bruce Weber's technical foul? I mean, anything we're leaving out that's gold, go for it.
Well, I mean, I guess we should probably warn KU fans, like, just be prepared for ugly basketball if you want your team to be winning in these next few weeks, because that's what it's going to take. That's kind of what Bill Self laid out after this game tonight, right? I mean, it's like if the game is in the 80s and it's against a quality opponent, that's probably not good for KU.
Right.
Bill Self said it himself. This team has to win ugly. This team has to play in ugly basketball games, and we've definitely seen some of those the past week. So be prepared for more if you're hoping for KU to go on a little bit of a run here.
There you go. That's a good way to wrap it up and to say it. I mean, that's dead right. And I, look, I still think these guys have the firepower on any given night, right? Jalen Wilson can get hot from three. Christian Brown can. Ochai can. Marcus Garrett looked like a, Reggie Miller out there tonight compared to the rest of the players on both teams. He actually made two, and nobody else even sniffed it. But he can knock in a couple. I mean, he's not going to get hot like that, but he can knock in a couple. I mean, any night, I think these guys still have that firepower. But I think what you're seeing them transition away from is that maybe 3 weeks ago, that was a lot of the thought and the talking out there about people saying, what does this team have to do to make a run? A lot of people said they got to shoot 43s and make 20 of them. And, while that made sense at the time and there's enough shooters, quote unquote, on this team to where maybe you could look at that and say, sure, that could work. That's not it anymore. I mean, they're not consistent from outside. They're not reliable out there. Ochai, who was great all year, hasn't been great the last couple of games. And so it comes back to just where are they? What are they? Defense, defense, defense. And then if they catch one of those defensive performances like you talked about, and they end up pairing that with a night where they make 12 3-pointers, they're going to be tough to beat. Doesn't mean it's going to happen often, but they are going to be tough to beat. So it's interesting. It should be a fun sprint to the finish. It should be fun to see what happens with everybody else, how many games everybody else gets in. I still think that's amazing that Baylor could have to play that much basketball just to get to the postseason. I don't know, man. Good luck. I hate to see that because I think they're a team that can obviously be there at the end. And for the Big 12 and just those of us around here who have watched them, it's easy to root for that. I mean, you'd love to see Baylor Gonzaga. Wouldn't you sign up for that right now?
Yes,
see?
Absolutely.
See?
It's the only game I would sign up for. I would not sign up for any other game.
You don't want to see Ohio State Creighton, man? Come on.
Ohio State is playing well. Maybe we should throw Ohio State into that mix. But that's Gonzaga Baylor I would pay to see.
There you go. Well, you might not have to. You might be doing it from that room right there where you've done most of this year. So, anyway, KU wins at 59-41. They do what they have to do. It was the second lowest output by an opponent in the Big 12 era under Self since 2007 when they held Nebraska to 39. And really it looked like they were going to set a new mark because K-State's bench threw in 2 threes in the last minute and got them to 41, but they were stuck on 35 and it looked like that was going to be the number. So anyway, whether you put a lot of stock in that or not, that's holding the team to 41 points, man, 17 in the first half. You're going to be in a game if you can do that against most teams. You're not going to do – they're not going to go out and hold Gonzaga to 17 and a half, right? Right?
No.
I mean, we can all agree on that?
Impossible.
Okay. So nobody's saying that's the expectation, but the idea is if that's who you are and that's how you play, maybe you hold a team like that to 28 in the first half, and then maybe you're in the game. So we'll see. We're going to learn a whole lot about it. There's a lot of coverage from this game, and there will be a lot more the rest of the week with Texas Tech coming up on Saturday at KUsports.com. So go check it out. And we'll talk to you guys again Saturday. For Benton Smith, I'm Matt Tate. Thanks for checking out KU Sports Extra.